Good morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Jono, and today I'll be concluding my three-part lesson on perspective. If you remember, we've already studied one-point perspective and two-point perspective. Well, today we'll begin three-point perspective. But before we start that, I'd like to remind you a little bit about myself. My name is Mr. Jono, like I said. I'm an artist living in New Orleans. I've been here for about 10 years, and I make paintings and prints. They're all abstract imagery, and sometimes they're really small, and sometimes they're really big. I've been doing that ever since I moved to town, and lately I've been working as a community works instructor. I'm a substitute, so I get to go to different schools all over the city and help lead enrichment programs at that specific school. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to show everyone out there a couple lessons on perspective. So earlier in our lessons, with 1-point and 2-point perspective, the age range for those lessons were to include everyone. So people of all ages, and specifically for this lesson, it was for second and fifth graders, second through fifth graders. Well, 3-point perspective is the hardest of the three. It's the most complicated. So even though this lesson is, you can apply it to any age, it would be best for children a little bit older, maybe 4th and 5th grade, because it's a little complicated, but we're going to do our best to make this as easy as possible. So just to review, today's 3-point perspective, age ranges between 4th and 5th grade. My name is Mr. Jono, and before we get started, as always, it's a good idea to wash our hands. Now, I've even started wearing a bandana around my neck in case I go out into public or I go outside. I can cover my face up like this, and I can keep myself and other people safe. So now, not only are we washing our hands, but we're also starting to cover our face a little bit. The more safe you can be, the better off we'll be in the long run, okay? So let's take a second and go wash our hands before we get started. And remember, we want to do that for 20 seconds. And the best way to know how long 20 seconds is to say your ABCs. So get under that sink, wash those hands, hum the alphabet, and you'll have clean hands, and you'll feel good because you're clean and safe, and you remember your ABCs. All right, let's get started. Okay, so like I said before, today we're going to focus on 3-point perspective, and I'm about to give us a little definition of that so we all understand what we're talking about and what we're working with. But just to review 1- and 2-point perspective, if you will remember, when we started with 1-point perspective, that represented that we had just one vanishing point on the horizon line. So you can already see behind me, I've got my horizon line drawn. So 1-point perspective is if we have one vanishing point on the horizon line. And 2-point perspective, if you remember, was when we had one here and then one over here. And so that kind of helped us see an image, or the form, if you will, from kind of at an angle, and you could see both sides of the form. So 1-point perspective is you're kind of looking at it face on, and you can see the form converge into the vanishing point. 2-point perspective, it's kind of tilted, and you can see both sides, and there's 2 points. Well, 3-point perspective, I'm sure you have guessed by now, is using 3 vanishing points. So 3-point perspective happens when you stand at the edge of a building and you look up. So what does that mean? And I guess in today's lesson, we're not really drawing buildings, we're drawing boxes. But nonetheless, if you were to go to the edge of a building, imagine yourself downtown, in downtown New Orleans, where all the tall buildings are. Imagine yourself walking right up to that building and looking at it straight up like this. And you notice that as the building gets higher, the sides converge, right? They converge to a point. So we have, so what that sentence is saying is that 3-point perspective gives you a perspective of, you're looking at the building from both sides because you have your 2 vanishing points on the horizon line, and then you have a 3rd vanishing point either way at the top or way at the bottom, and it helps for that image to converge that way. So 3-point perspective, once again, is just a more technical way of images looking bigger as they appear close to us and further away as it gets, or smaller as it gets further away. So I know that was a lot of words, so I'm going to show you some images. So here is an image of a hand drawing 3-point perspective. So you see what I mean? How you can see both sides. You get this side of the building and this side of the building. That's from our 2-point perspective. And then the building converges at the top, way up here, and that's where our third vanishing point is. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3 right there. So take a look at that image, and then I'm going to show you 2 images from real life that are being shown in 3-point perspective. Take a look at this for a second. If you look really closely, you can even see his guidelines that person has drawn in an effort to help them construct this building. Okay, so you have that. There's a drawing, and now I'm going to put up an actual building. I'm not really sure where this building is from, but now you can see more closely how this applies to real life. So again, you have the corner of the building is right in the middle, and then you can see this side, and then the very top that starts to converge into a point. All right, check that out. Hey. And then I've got another one for you, the Eiffel Tower. Everyone knows this, even though you may have not have ever seen it in person. I've actually never been to Paris. I've never seen the Eiffel Tower, but I certainly know exactly what it looks like, and here's what it looks like in 3-point perspective. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now we have a few visual aids that will kind of help us understand what we're working towards. And the only other thing we want to do is get ready with our materials. And then once we do that, we will get started with our vocabulary, and we'll actually begin drawing in 3-point perspective. So what materials do we need? Well, this is one of the coolest parts about these videos, is that the materials section is very short, and it's very easy, and you probably have it laying around your house. So we need a sheet of paper. The bigger your piece of paper, the better, but it doesn't have to be a big sheet. You can use the back of a computer paper right there. That works just fine. You can use a scrap sheet, a piece of construction paper, whatever you have laying around the house. And then, of course, we need a pencil. I'm going to be drawing in a Sharpie so you can see what I'm doing, but it's better to draw on a pencil in case you mess up, because if you mess up, you can just take yourself an eraser and erase your line marks. So that's our next piece of material that we need, is an eraser, and then a ruler that you can either use or don't use. So if you don't have a ruler, it's not that big of a deal. If you do have a ruler, it will make your life a lot easier, and it will make your lines a lot straighter. But just to prove to you that you can make beautiful art without a ruler, I am going to do all my drawing today with no ruler. Okay? So take a second and get all your materials together, and when you're done with that, we'll get started. All right, everyone, so we're just about ready to get started, but before we do that, I want to review our vocabulary list. Now, I'm not going to take too much time to write out the words and the definitions, because we did that in our first video on 1-point perspective. So if you're unclear, after I do this review, if you're unclear or you need to double check a vocabulary word, go back to lesson 1 on 1-point perspective, and I have a whole chart written out of all the vocabulary words that we've been using and that we're going to continue to use today. Okay, so what are those vocabulary words? Well, the first one is horizon line. We should know that one by now. A horizon line is the line that goes across our paper, and it just signals where the sky ends and the ground meets. So if you were to look out your window and there were no buildings and you could see in the distance forever, you would eventually see the horizon line where the sky comes down and the earth comes up and they meet. That's this line right here. Now in our drawing, you can put that wherever you want. I put it down towards the bottom of the page for a good reason that I'll explain later on once we get started. But your horizon line can go anywhere. Most people like to kind of put it in the middle. As I said earlier, today I put mine lower to closer to the bottom of the paper. So horizon line is, once again, where the earth and the sky meet. Our next vocabulary word is vanishing point, all right? So in 1 point and 2 point perspective, we put our vanishing points all along the line, and we knew that that is where our guidelines converge or meet at the vanishing point to help us articulate our three-dimensional form. So, horizon line, vanishing point. Next few vocabulary words are kind of grouped together and they're really similar. We have a horizontal line. Horizontal line is a term that we use every day and that we draw and we look at every day. It's just a straight line that goes from side to side horizontally. It comes from the word horizon. So there you go. That is also not only a horizon line, it is also a horizontal line. Well, the opposite, if a horizontal line goes this way, back and forth, a vertical line probably is the opposite of that. And if you thought that a vertical line is a line that goes up and down, well, then you're correct. So horizontal lines goes from side to side, and vertical lines go from top to bottom, okay? And sometimes they intersect each other and make a cross or an X, depending on how you're looking at it. The next kind of line is a parallel line. So parallel lines are two lines that are drawn together right next to each other. They're drawn right next to each other. They can be far apart or they can be close together. The thing that makes them parallel is that they never touch or intersect. So if your lines are starting to get closer and closer and then they touch like that, that's not a parallel line. They have to stay the same distance apart from each other the whole time. So that's all a parallel line is. It's just two lines that are equidistant apart from each other throughout the duration of that line. So, the next word is plane. What is a plane? Well, a plane is just the area in which we're about to do our drawing. So sometimes it's a piece of paper. In this case, it's a piece of paper. Sometimes it could be a canvas, a painting canvas if you're a painter. If you're a ceramicist, it could be, whatever you are building three-dimensionally. Same thing with a sculptor. So your plane can be anything. It's just the surface of which your form lives in. And we're going to learn or review what a form is here in 1 second. So in this instance, our plane is our piece of paper. We're going to do our drawing in the plane, right all here. And a form is whatever we're drawing, whatever the actual art is we're making is the form. Even if it's abstract, it still has a form. So in this case, our form is three-dimensional cubes or boxes. If you were building the Eiffel Tower, your form would be, or if you were drawing the Eiffel Tower, your form would be the Eiffel Tower, okay? So those, I think, are about 7 vocabulary words that we use all the time, and we're going to continue to use them today. Again, if I was talking a little too fast or you didn't understand one of the definitions, go back to perspective, to 1 point perspective, the video on 1 point perspective, and I have each definition written out on a dry erase board. You can pause it and write it down or read it. You can take your time. So just remember, go back and look at those words if you need a little review. All right, y'all. Let's get started with our drawing. So we already know that we need a horizon line, and I mentioned to you earlier that I was going to draw the horizon line close to the bottom of the page. So you can take the time right now to draw your horizon line wherever you want and however long you want. The reason I did it towards the bottom is because my box, I want to be up in the air. I want it to seem like we're looking way up at the sky for it. So what that's called is a worm's eye view. So if you want to add that to your vocabulary list, a worm's eye view is a perspective from way down at the ground, like you're looking up to the sky. And a bird's eye view is the opposite of that. You're way up at the sky, looking down on the ground. So I'm going to give you an example of each one. But first, we're going to do a worm's eye view of a 3-point perspective box. So just follow along as closely as you can, and if you have to stop and rewind to get a clear understanding of what I'm doing, please feel free to. But step 1, as always, is draw your horizon line. So I did that. Now once I draw my horizon line, we want to add our 2 vanishing points. So just like 2-point perspective, we're going to put a vanishing point way over here and way over here, okay? Now you can put those vanishing points wherever you want. If you want to put them closer together, that's okay. Just know the closer you put them, the more distorted your image will look. And so what does that mean by distortion? Well, I think what I'm trying to say is that if you don't put your vanishing points far apart, your building is going to look very exaggerated, kind of like they do in a cartoon. And the next time you're watching cartoons, if you'll look at the scenery around the characters, Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck or whatever cartoon you're watching, usually everything around them is exaggerated. The counter's really high in the air and the door's really small to get through, those kind of things. So the further apart you put your vanishing points, the more realistic your box will be. Now remember, it doesn't matter if you want it to be realistic or not. It's not right or wrong. The cool thing about art is that there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. It's just how you interpret things and what's the interpretation you're trying to get across. So keep that in mind. So now that we have our two vanishing points, I'm going to put a third vanishing point way up at the top, right up here. Okay? Now after I do that, so now here you go. You can see the three vanishing points. We're in 3-point perspective. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to label 1, 2, 3. Okay? Those are our 3 vanishing points. Now the next thing we want to do is draw a guideline, which is going to be a vertical line from here, from the third vanishing point, straight down. This might be where your ruler comes in handy, but like I said, I'm not going to be using a ruler, so I'm going to do the best I can. And since it's a guideline, I'm going to draw kind of a dotted line instead of like a full line. If you're using a pencil, you can draw your full line because it's easy to erase. I've got a Sharpie that I can't erase, so I'm trying to, not confuse myself later down the line. So draw this vertical guideline just like this. All right, so I even went past my horizon line a little bit. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever works best for you. I'm going to kind of scoot this camera a little closer so maybe we can see better. Okay, so we've got our horizon line, we've got our 3 vanishing points, and our 1 guideline. So now we're going to take another guideline from the first vanishing point. We're going to do 2 guidelines, and we're going to take one from here, and we're going to stop at the dotted line, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to stop at the dotted line. Here's where your creativity comes in. You can make that as wide or narrow as you want. So what I mean by that is, I'm going to start my first line, I'm going to come all the way here, and I'm going to stop right there. So I decided for my line to stop right here. If you wanted it to stop there or down here, you can do that. It's whatever you'd like. And then I'm going to do my next one. All right, so now I've got 2 guidelines. They're, I don't know, that's maybe 3-4 inches apart from each other. Again, it doesn't really matter. However wide you want this distance to be, you can choose. The important part is that you stop at the vertical line that we drew, okay? And now I'm going to come over to vanishing point 2 and do the same thing, except I'm going to make all my lines meet where I chose from vanishing point 1. Okay, so I'm going to have a line go from here to here, and then from here to here. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. All right, there we go. So now you can kind of see that our box is starting to take shape. It's you can see this side and that side. So that's really reminiscent of 2-point perspective, right? It's kind of like you're looking at the corner of your form, which in this case is a box, but it could be a building, it could be a chair, it could be a TV, whatever you're drawing. All right, so now you can start to see that, like I said. So now here's where we start to incorporate the third viewpoint, the 3rd-point perspective. We're going to come down here, or up here, I should say, for those of you who have your vanishing point in the air. So now we're going to take 2 more guidelines, and we're going to extend them out this way, like this. And they can be as wide or narrow as you would like. It doesn't matter. This is what's going to really show us how big of a box we're making. So the wider you go, the bigger your box is going to be. And the more narrow you go, the smaller your box is going to be. And so since I got a big piece of paper and I want to draw big so I'm sure everyone can see, I'm going to make my lines wide. So let me show you how that's going to be done right now. Remember to start at your third vanishing point. Whoop. Got an empty can over here. Sorry about that. All right, so now you can kind of really see how it's starting to take shape. So we've got all our guidelines from this side and that side. So now we can see that this is side 1 of our box, side 2, and this is how far back each of those sides go. So we're almost done. We have the top of our box, the sides of our box done. Now we have this blank area right here. We need to draw in the bottom of our box. So now we're going to go back to our 1 and 2 vanishing points. And we're going to draw another dotted line, but there's going to be a little difference. So the first time we drew our lines from vanishing point 1, we stopped right here at this vertical line. This time we're going to carry it on over, all the way over to where our vanishing point, our other lines intersect. So we're going from one side of the box or one side of the paper all the way to the other side, okay? So I'm going to do that for you so you can kind of know where the line is supposed to end. Okay, so you see how I took that line and went across across the first guideline. I kept on going, then I crossed the second guideline, which was our vertical line, and I kept on going all the way to where those guidelines meet each other, okay? And now I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, and these two lines are going to intersect, and that's going to create the bottom side of our box. And then we'll color that box in, and it'll all make a lot more sense. All right, so here we go. All right, there you have it. So my lines are a little crooked because I didn't use a ruler, but that's no big deal. So we finished, and now we have a box, and from worm's eye view, because we're looking straight up, and it's in 3-point perspective. So I'm going to color that box, or I'm going to trace that box so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, now that makes a lot more sense. I can see it on the screen. Okay, great. So if you're working in a pencil, once you trace your box, then you can erase all these lines and have just your 3-dimensional box. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take down this piece of paper and put up another sheet of paper, and we're going to do the same thing under the horizon line as if we're looking at a box from a bird's eye view. So take a minute to check this over. If you're confused about any of the different steps that we went through, just rewind the video and replay, and you can do that as many times as you need in order to understand exactly what's going on here. So take a look for a couple seconds, and then I'm going to put up a new sheet of paper so we can do another one. Okay, so here we go with another 3-point perspective drawing, this time in bird's eye view, which is the opposite of worm's eye view. I'm going to draw my horizon line. This time I'm going to draw it at the top of the piece of paper instead of the bottom. So just like this. All right, straight as I can make it without a ruler. going to have one vanishing point, two vanishing points, and then a third one way down here. And remember, we're going to draw our dotted line, our dotted guideline straight up. So I'm going to do that right now. All right. So first thing we do, if you'll remember, is draw one set of guidelines coming from vanishing point 1, and we're going to stop somewhere along this guideline that we just drew. So I'm going to do mine. I'm going to go from here to here, and then from here to here. All right. Now I'm going to draw the same set of guidelines from vanishing point 2 to meet right here at these 2 points. It looks like this. All right. So now you can kind of see the sides of our boxes start to take shape. We're going to draw our guidelines from vanishing point 3. Remember, they're going to go out this way. And last time I did mine really wide, so maybe this time I'm going to do mine really narrow. Okay, here we go. All right, so now you can see our building, or our box. It looks like a building, that's why I keep calling it a building. We've got our sides and the bottom done. Now we just need to do the top. So if you remember, we're going to take our guideline for vanishing point 1 and go all the way across all of our lines and stop right here at this intersection. And that looks like this. Right there. And we're going to do the same thing with vanishing point 2. And we're going to stop. We're going to come all the way across here. Where are we going to stop? We're going to stop right here. Okay? And there you have it. That's our bird's eye view. So let's trace in our cube, our form, if you will. All right, so that's starting to look like a building itself. Like imagine what if like this was our street, and it came out like this, and then we went all the way up here, and now we had like a little sidewalk. So you see how easy it can be to start drawing and using the knowledge from three-point perspective and incorporating it into your drawing. So there you have it. That is a bird's eye view of a box. And if you'll rewind, if you need another look, we can see the worm's eye view of a cube as well. So hopefully that was clear to everyone. Once again, if you're having any trouble, just rewind the tape and listen to it again. Ask some questions if you need some information explained to you, and feel free to contact CommunityWorks if you have any kind of knowledge or questions to pass along about this particular video. All right, everyone, I appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, now that we've finished our drawing, I'd just like to take a couple minutes to review what we did and how that applies to all the other things that we learned, and to give us a little time to reflect and think about any issues or successes that we might have had while working in three-point perspective. Excuse me. So, if you remember, like I said earlier in this video, and like I have concluded with in all our other videos, we started with one-point perspective and worked our way up to three-point perspective. So once again, one-point perspective is, you've got a horizon line with one vanishing point, and all your guidelines and your imagery and your form converge to that one vanishing point. Two-point perspective is you have two vanishing points, obviously, and so your form has two different areas to converge to. So like one side converges to vanishing point 1, and the other side converges to vanishing point 2, and that's kind of what gives you this effect right here of being able to see both sides of your form. Obviously, we just finished third point perspective, so that might be what's most fresh in our mind. And once again, using 3 vanishing points, I'd like to think that we did a pretty easy job of explaining how these techniques work. So, hopefully you kind of were able to connect the ideas from 1 point to 2 point, then to 3 point, So that's what we're taking this time to do. Were you successful in working in 1 point and 2 point and 3 point perspective? Did you have any problems? Were you able to draw a 3-dimensional object? Were you able to apply the vocabulary that we learned to our drawing and what those techniques are called and what those words mean when we refer to the techniques? Vanishing point, horizon line, what's some other one? Parallel lines, vertical lines. Did you commit those vocabulary words to your memory? The cool thing about art is that it teaches us a lot of information that's relative in other parts of our life. So you don't just have to know what a parallel line is because you're working on an art project. You need to know what that is because we use that term in life, and we use it all the time when we're building something, when we're, anything that we're doing. So, these vocabulary words, they're important not just for these lessons in your enrichment courses and classes. They're important for every day. The more words you know, the smarter you can feel and the more conversations you can have with people all across the world. It's a great way to connect. So art kind of is a vehicle for us to make connections with people all across the world on various different fabrics of life, with doctors, with lawyers, with teachers, with other artists, with athletes, with musicians, So the point I'm trying to make is that if we can understand what we're doing and we're understanding these vocabulary words and we know how to talk to one another, that's just one more thing that we can connect with, and that's one of the things that makes this world so beautiful. So once you get those vocabulary words down, did you have any problems with the demo? Was I talking too fast? Were my lines not straight enough for you? Could you not even see what I was drawing? If you have those problems, be sure and send us an email and let us know that those are some things that I can work on. Hopefully though, you can see everything and you can understand, and my lines are straight enough for you. So as long as you understood that demo, then I bet you were able to connect all the past demos together and are able to move on into the next part of art making, which I will put up a lesson for sometime next week. So, as long as you understood what we did today and you can apply that to the future, then I think we did a good job. If you had some struggles with that and you were uncertain about some areas, go back and watch the video, rewatch the video, and with the instructions, maybe go back and watch a couple of the other videos, maybe 1 or 2 point, and see if you can kind of jog your memory and get back to understanding what we were doing. And, we don't want to leave anyone behind. So if you're really, really struggling, send us an email and we'll get back to you and help you out as quickly as possible. So once again, thank you very much for spending your afternoon with me. I really enjoyed it. I hope we were able to learn something together. Remember to work really hard and practice and practice and practice. That's the only way that you can get better at things like this. So be sure you're doing those things, and at all costs, be sure that you're being safe and healthy out there, and you're washing your hands, and you're covering your face when you go outside, and you're doing everything that you can do to make the world a better place. Have a great day.